More?
No more.
No more? Okay. So I love sweet potatoes. And I asked the guy serving this, can we get more? And he said no more. It's not even like I asked for shrimp or octopus. I asked for a freaking sweet potato slice, okay? Just one or two would have done. And he declined.
Hey y'all, I've been feeling fairly agoraphobic lately, so I thought that I'd slap together some previously unseen video footage of my adventures in Cleveland, Ohio. Unfortunately, however, when I tried to boot up the hard drive where all the footage was stored, it died right on cue. So the only footage I've left are stuff from Japan that never saw the light of day. And here it is. This is probably my favorite memory of Japan. Now, I'm generally not a fan of cruise ships, and I never thought I'd board one in a million years. But now that I look back on this footage, it makes me wonder if I already have, unbeknownst me. Does this count as a cruise ship? If it does, I didn't know I was getting on a cruise ship, honest. All I knew was that we were going to a restaurant that was located on a boat, and they were going to be serving us sushi. That was all my sister told me, and at the time it sounded like a lame, touristy thing to do. But I couldn't have been more wrong, because when I look back on all the memories I made in Japan, this is probably my favorite. This and the robot show that we attended, but yeah. Before we got on, they had us slip this strip of paper between our shoelaces just so they can identify them later when we were getting off the boat. And they can retrieve it for us, since we had to take our shoes off before we stepped inside the boat. So anyway, I really liked this boat ride for a couple reasons. One, I thought the seafood that they served went over very well with my casual American palate. I'm not much of a fine dining sushi person. Well, I'm not much of a fine dining person, period. But you get my meaning. My sister's more into that kind of stuff, like sashimi and seaweed. But I'm not as hardcore as her, so I tend to stick with safer choices like rolls and tempura when I go to sushi restaurants. So yeah, the spread of food that they served on this boat looks a lot more intimidating than it actually is, but the presentation was neat and there was nothing fishy about it.
I'm sorry, the squid has been decapitated. Softest squid I've ever had in my life. I don't like squid, so chewy, but this is just so soft, it's melting in my mouth, it's crazy.
They also gave us this menu of beverages that we can order, and it was all you can drink. Most of the meal consisted of tempura, fried food, so I thought it was great, because this is right up my alley. I love tempura. My sister, on the other hand, felt disappointed, because she thought she was gonna have some uncompromising, authentic Japanese sushi. The other thing I really enjoyed about this boat ride were our servers, who moonlit as entertainers. One server happened to be an aspiring artist. He was spectacular. He sung us Celine Dion's Titanic song. And yeah, it sounds corny in theory, but in practice, it was honestly pretty great, because at this point of the experience, it just worked. We were in the mood, and collectively, we were primed for it, and it was just a genuinely feel-good experience. I guess what I'm trying to say is, it felt organic. Yeah, I know. On paper, it sounds idiotic, but when you're actually there in person, you just go with the flow, and it ends up making sense. And you have to appreciate the amount of effort the artist made to entertain us. he donned a dragon costume and gifted each of us a traditional good luck charm. And then there was another server who was an actor. We didn't get to see him showcasing his acting chops or anything, but he was such a nice server, which, as you may well know, is pretty rare. Being a server is one of the most thankless jobs, and even when you get a nice server, you could usually tell they're forcing a smile, and they can't wait for you to hurry up and finish your stupid food so they can get a tip and forget about you. But with this guy, I didn't get that feeling. I guess what I'm trying to say is he seemed like he genuinely enjoyed serving us. And maybe this was him acting, since he is an actor after all. And if so, we totally fell for it, because he was very convincing. There was this intermission where we all got to climb the stairs to the rooftop and enjoy the surrounding waters and cityscape. And I got to chat with him for a short time, and he just seemed like a sincerely friendly human. I've only come across a handful of people like this in my life, and every time I have, they're a people magnet. People just gravitate toward them because it's just a vibe that they emanate where people feel comfortable around them. This guy had that kind of energy where you were like, gosh, you must not be hurting for any friends. I don't know, but the funny thing is, we both had the same names. Here's a clip of me in real life. Please don't hate me for being socially awkward.
You guys are both introducing each other.
Thank you very much. Hi, Andy.
Hi, Andy.
Yes, I'm Andy.
And I'm Andy.
Yes, we are Andy.
He's the better half. I'm the evil one.
Thank
So-
you very
The one
much.
from Japan.
Rock long. Okay.
Thank you. Arigato.
いいえ、どういたしまして。ありがとうございます。Thank you.
I also shared a similar exchange with a singer, but sadly, the camera was not recording, which is something that happened a lot on this trip. Many magnum opus moments that nobody will ever believe because I failed to realize that the camera was not recording. So there was one point at the rooftop where I overheard a group of people debating the top 3 most romantic cities in the world. They were saying the most romantic cities were Paris, New York City, and Tokyo. I didn't really care for their opinion. I would have bumped New York City for Cleveland. But that's just me. At the end of the boat ride, there was a lady making the rounds and asking each of us where we were from. And I was surprised to find out there was another group from Ohio. I don't recall if they were from Cleveland, like me, but yeah. I didn't really expect to be sharing this particular Japanese boat ride with another Ohioan. Interesting. Overall, the best part about this memory was that I got to share it with my mother. It feels like yesterday when my mother was so young and full of vigor, and I was in the 1st grade and I trailed her all around downtown Los Angeles. And even at that age, my legs hurt from trying to keep up with her. But it feels like overnight that my mother turned into an old frail person. And now she can't walk that much, so this limited her involvement with a lot of what my sister and I did in Japan. However, this was one of the few activities that I got to experience with my mother, who is just as agoraphobic and friendless as me. And she really got to indulge on this boat ride, which is a very rare sighting for her. She was drinking like a sailor. Normally, she's not into alcohol, and she never drinks. Maybe a shot of sake when she eats sushi. But here, she was actually drinking wine, and she had numerous refills of her glass. I've never seen her drink so much, and I probably never will again. So it just seemed like one of those once-in-a-lifetime experiences. at least for me and my mother's standards. My sister's the outgoing extroverted traveler in the family. My mother and I are agoraphobic shut-ins.
So we're having Kirin beer, which is it's a very big brand, Kirin. Like there's so many drinks, so many milk teas that I enjoy from this brand. And we're having their beer here.
Ultimately, everything just came together exquisitely on this boat ride. All the staff that entertained us seemed like they were really into it, and it just felt like magic. The mood, the atmosphere, it was the sum of all parts that made this trip so memorable. Even down to the people who were drinking next to us. There was actually a gentleman from Japan. He wasn't even a tourist, but he was having so much fun, and he was letting loose, singing along to Titanic. And when you have a local having this much fun, it doesn't feel as touristy anymore, and it feels more authentic. I absolutely loved that there was a native who thought this boat ride was worthwhile, because I honestly can't imagine doing the same thing if there was a similar seafood boat ride being offered in my adopted hometown of Cleveland. I hate boats, and I would think it's pointless. But the fact that there was someone native to Japan enjoying this experience as much as us not only validated the amusement that I was feeling, but it made me admire him. It made me admire his spirit. I wish I could enjoy life as much as him. So, yeah, this was my favorite memory of Japan. Let me know what you think of boat rides and cruise ships. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.